The mysterious prophet. No one knows the full details of his childhood. No long genealogies. No descriptions of what his home looked like. No records of his early miracles. And yet, his name stands in the Qur'an, brief, mysterious, and powerful. That's what makes Prophet Dhul-Kifl us one of the most intriguing figures in the entire prophetic story. His life teaches a message so sharp, so relevant, that even today's world feels pulled toward it. The power of responsibility. When the Quran mentions him, it does so with an honor that instantly commands attention. He is placed among the righteous. He is counted among the chosen. And yet, unlike many other prophets whose stories unfold across pages and generations, the story of Dhul-Kifl comes wrapped in silence. That silence isn't a limitation, it's an invitation. An invitation to look deeper, to reflect on why Allah highlighted him with so few words, yet such incredible praise. Many scholars describe him as a man of remarkable patience, unwavering discipline, and an extraordinary sense of duty. His title Dhul-Kifl itself sparks curiosity. Some say it means the one with the responsibility, while others describe it as the one who guarantees. Imagine that. A man whose very name suggests commitment at a level most people never reach. A man whose identity revolves around the promise he made and kept. That promise would eventually change his destiny. But in part one, the focus is on the mystery. Picture the ancient world as society searching for stability. People desperate for justice. Hearts longing for someone who could lead without corruption, ego, or personal gain. It's in this environment that Dhul-Kifl appears, not as a man seeking power, but as a man stepping forward to carry responsibility when others hesitated. His life stands as a reminder that you don't need fame to be chosen. You don't need a long biography to be honored by God. Sometimes your greatness is not in how much the world knows about you, but in the consistency of the commitments you keep. And that's the heart of Dhul-Kifl's story. A man whose quiet determination earned him a place among the righteous, forever engraved in divine revelation. His mystery is not an absence, it's a spotlight. Rise of a just leader. When Dhul-Kifl stepped forward to lead, it wasn't because he wanted authority. It was because the people were desperate for someone who could bring fairness back into their lives. Corruption had become normal. Leaders made promises they never honored. Judgment was influenced by wealth, connections, or fear. And in that fragile society, one question began circulating among the wise elders. Who will take the responsibility to lead with justice every single day without failing? Most men stayed silent because justice isn't a slogan. It is a burden. It demands sleepless nights, uncomfortable decisions, and absolute consistency. But Dhul-Kifl stepped forward with calm confidence. He wasn't loud. He didn't give a grand speech. He simply offered what others feared, a guarantee. I will judge fairly. I will not grow angry. And I will not abandon my duty. It sounds simple, but anyone who has ever led anything, a business, a family, a team knows how hard it is to stay fair, calm, and consistent under pressure. And yet, Dhul-Kifl embraced these conditions as if they were a natural part of him. Once he took leadership, the difference became visible instantly. People began lining up with disputes they had given up on years ago. Widows, travelers, orphans, merchants. Farmers everyone found a leader who listened with patience and judged with clarity. He never rushed a decision. He never favored one group over another. His face didn't change whether he was speaking to a wealthy noble or a poor stranger. In his presence, truth felt safe again. His leadership style became legendary not because he ruled with power, but because he ruled with principle. He had no interest in control, he wanted justice. He didn't seek praise, he sought fairness. And slowly, society changed around him. People began imitating his calmness, his honesty, his commitment to duty. Justice wasn't just coming from the top. It was spreading among the hearts of the people. And that's what made Dhul-Kifl as extraordinary. Leadership didn't transform him. He transformed leadership. But justice always brings challenges. And soon, he would face trials meant to break his patience, test his promise, and reveal the true depth of his character. Trials of an unshakable heart. Justice always attracts resistance. The moment Dhul-Kifl began leading with fairness, those who benefited from corruption started feeling threatened. They wanted the old system back, the one where a few powerful men controlled everything. And so, they planned to break the one man who stood between them and their influence. Their strategy wasn't violence. It was something far more subtle and dangerous, testing his patience until he snapped. Because they knew one thing: if Dhul-Kifl lost his patience even once, he would fail the very pledge that defined him. The first trial came in the form of endless disturbances. Every night, when the city fell silent and he finally tried to rest, troublemakers would come knocking. Fake emergencies, pointless disputes, petty arguments they could have solved themselves. But Dhul-Kifl never showed anger. He rose from his bed every time, listened, judged fairly, and returned to rest without complaint. The second trial was more personal. Rumors began circulating about him. Lies were spread, twisting his words, questioning his decisions, attacking his character. In any other leader, this would cause frustration, emotional exhaustion, even retaliation. But Dhul-Kifl responded with the same calmness. Allah knows the truth. Those words became his shield. Then came the most intense trial. A man sent specifically to provoke him approached his court every day with new accusations, each more absurd than the last. He interrupted proceedings, spoke over others, insulted Dhul-Kifl directly, and challenged him publicly. The people watched closely. They wanted to see if the leader who promised patience could withstand such disrespect. But Dhul-Kifl didn't waver. His voice never rose. His face never shifted. Instead, he replied with compassion, as if speaking to someone deeply lost. If you have a case, present it with truth. If you seek to harm, know that harm returns to its owner. His words disarmed the man completely. With every trial, Dhul-Kifl proved something powerful. Patience isn't weakness, it's control. It's strength wrapped in calmness. It's the ability to stand firm when the world is trying to pull you apart. And because he passed these trials, his pledge, his lifelong promise, was about to turn into a defining legacy. The pledge that defined a prophet. Long before he became a symbol of justice, Dhul-Kifl stood before his people and made a promise, a pledge so extraordinary that it would shape his destiny and earn him the very title by which the world remembers him. This was not a casual declaration. It was a commitment made with full awareness of the weight it carried. The elders of the community had gathered to choose a new leader. They needed someone who could judge fairly, protect the weak, and lead with unwavering calm. They also knew that leadership often corrupts even the most sincere hearts. So they set conditions, 3 conditions, that would immediately filter out anyone who wasn't truly ready. Who will guarantee, they asked, that he will judge with fairness, remain patient, and never grow angry? The room fell silent. Everyone understood the magnitude of such a pledge. Fair judgment requires strength. Patience demands discipline. And controlling anger, that requires mastery over the inner self. Most men looked away, knowing they could not honestly promise all 3. But then Dhul-Kifl stepped forward, not with arrogance, not with dramatic flair, but with steady conviction. "I will," he said. 3 simple words, yet they carried the weight of a lifetime. He didn't offer excuses. He didn't ask for privileges. He didn't request special protection or personal gain. His only request was that he be allowed to fulfill the responsibility fully. With sincerity and devotion to Allah, the elders studied him, his calmness, his clarity, his confidence. Finally, they accepted his pledge and entrusted him with leadership. And this is where his title was born. Dhul-Kifl, the one who guarantees, the one who carries responsibility, the one who takes the pledge and fulfills it. From that moment on, his entire life became a reflection of that promise. Every judgment he made, every night he stayed awake serving the community, every insult he endured with patience, all of it traced back to that single pledge. What makes his promise legendary is not that he made it, but that he kept it. Day after day, year after year, no cracks, no shortcuts, no moments of emotional collapse. In a world where people break promises easily, Dhul-Kifl became the man whose word was unshakable. The unbreakable honesty of a leader. The greatness of Dhul-Kifl wasn't built on miracles or dramatic public displays. It was built on something far more rare, consistent honesty, a quality so pure, so unwavering, that even his enemies couldn't deny it. His truthfulness wasn't occasional, wasn't selective, it was a constant force guiding every decision he made. People came to trust him not because he promised big changes, but because he delivered exactly what he said. When he spoke, his words carried weight. When he listened, people felt valued. When he judged, no one questioned whether he was influenced by wealth, pressure, or personal connections. He had no hidden agenda, no political strategy, no secret ambitions. In an era where leaders often manipulated truth to maintain power, Dhul-Kifl held onto honesty as if it were a sacred treasure. And in his heart, it was. Because his honesty didn't come from pride, it came from devotion. He believed that truth is a form of worship, a reflection of one's connection with Allah. So lying was not just an act of dishonesty. It was a betrayal of his soul. One of the most remarkable examples of his honesty came during a complicated dispute involving a wealthy merchant and a struggling farmer. The merchant used influence and wealth to pressure the community, confident that his status would win the case. The farmer, trembling and unsure, stood before Dhul-Kifl with nothing but truth in his hands. When Dhul-Kifl delivered the judgment, he didn't even hesitate. His decision favored the farmer because the farmer was right. The merchant was stunned. He had never encountered a leader who couldn't be bought, intimidated, or persuaded through connections. And when people saw this judgment, they felt something shift. Justice wasn't just spoken, it was lived. But Dhul-Kifl's honesty went beyond the courtroom. He was honest in his promises to the community, honest in his interactions with strangers, honest in moments where no one was watching except Allah. His integrity became a light, steady, unwavering, impossible to ignore. It taught people that honesty isn't just a virtue. It's a lifestyle, a discipline, a responsibility. And this character became so admired that stories of his integrity traveled across ancient lands, inspiring communities far beyond his own. Echoes across ancient lands, long before written records were common, long before empires carved their names into stone. Stories traveled through people, merchants, travelers, nomads crossing deserts, and caravans threading between ancient cities. And among those stories, one name began to surface again and again. The leader who never broke his promise, the man of patience, the guardian of justice. Dhul-Kifl. His influence wasn't contained within the borders of his community. It spread naturally, carried by the awe of those who witnessed his leadership firsthand. In bustling marketplaces, traders repeated tales of his calmness in the face of chaos. In remote villages, parents told their children about the man who never raised his voice, even when provoked. And in gatherings of scholars, elders debated the meaning behind his legendary pledge. Some lands knew him as the man of responsibility. Others knew him as the one who guaranteed justice. A few even believed he was blessed with a spiritual strength that mirrored the patience of prophets before him. These retellings weren't identical. Each culture added its own flavor, but the core of the story remained the same. A man whose character was stronger than any earthly challenge. His message reached ancient leaders and rulers who struggled to maintain fairness in their kingdoms. Some tried to replicate his method, calm judgment, no anger, no corruption, no shortcuts. Many failed because Dhul-Kifl didn't achieve greatness through techniques, he achieved it through sincerity. His leadership came from the heart, not strategy books or political advisors. Travelers passing through his land would carry back stories of how disputes were resolved without bias, how people felt safe regardless of their status, and how justice didn't depend on wealth or tribe. These stories inspired admiration and sometimes disbelief. A leader who judges without anger. Some asked, a man who keeps every promise. Others wondered, but those who had seen him knew. Yes, this man existed. His reputation traveled so far that his name eventually became part of spiritual traditions across multiple civilizations. Scholars of later generations would speak of him with respect. Even if they didn't know every detail of his life, his legacy wasn't preserved through monuments. It was preserved through character, and soon people began connecting him to another legendary figure, known for patience and suffering, Prophet Dhul-Kifl. Linked by patience, his bond with Dhul-Kifl. Among the many mysteries surrounding Dhul-Kifl, one stands out as especially intriguing: his connection to Prophet Dhul-Kifl. the man whose patience became a symbol of endurance for all generations. Though their stories unfolded in different chapters of history, the spiritual link between them is unmistakable. Both embodied an extraordinary level of patience, sabr, that didn't break even under trials that would overwhelm most hearts. Some scholars suggest that Dhul-Kifl may have lived during or shortly after the time of Ayyubas. Others say he may have been appointed to assist the aging prophet, helping him fulfill tasks when his illness made normal leadership impossible. While the exact details remain hidden by time, the theme remains powerful. Dhul-Kifl walked the path of patience laid by Ayyubas. Imagine this scene: an elderly Ayyubas, weak from years of suffering, still guiding his people with wisdom, and beside him, a calm, disciplined young man, Dhul-Kifl, stepping forward to shoulder responsibility, ensuring that justice continued even when the prophet was too weak to stand. Whether this exact image is literal or symbolic, it represents the connection between the two, the passing of a torch of patience. Ayyubas endured physical suffering. Dhul-Kifl has endured the emotional and psychological trials of leadership. One faced pain, the other faced pressure, but both remained unshaken. Their stories show that patience isn't just one kind, it comes in different forms, tailored to different souls. Dhul-Kifl, inspired by the legacy of Ayyubas, vowed to embody that same calm endurance, and he fulfilled it not through dramatic miracles, but through daily discipline. In this way, their stories fit together like two halves of a lesson. Ayyubas teaches us how to endure hardship without complaint, while Dhul-Kifl teaches us how to endure responsibility without breaking. Generations later, people who studied their stories recognized a powerful truth. Patience isn't just surviving pain, it's staying true to your values no matter what the world throws at you. And in that sense, the bond between these two prophets forms a bridge of spiritual strength that still inspires millions today. The weight of responsibility. Responsibility is easy to claim but incredibly hard to carry. Most people want influence, authority, or recognition. Few want accountability. Yet Dhul-Kifl built his entire life on the foundation of responsibilities so strong that even centuries later, it defines his name, his mission, and his legacy. He didn't treat responsibility as a job. He treated it as a trust and a manner, something sacred, something that came not from the people, but from Allah. And that mindset changed everything. Because when your responsibility is connected to your faith, you don't cut corners, you don't choose what's convenient, you don't bend the truth for comfort. You carry the weight even when your shoulders tremble. One of the most striking parts of his leadership was how seriously he approached the smallest tasks. If someone came with a minor complaint, he listened with the same attention he gave to the largest disputes. If a widow needed support, he made sure she received justice with dignity. If a stranger needed guidance, he ensured they weren't turned away. He taught his community that responsibility is not measured by size, it's measured by sincerity. This attitude made him different from rulers who waited for grand events to showcase their leadership. Dhul-Kifl believed leadership was proven in the quiet moments, the ones no one applauds, the ones no historian records. That was his strength, silent consistency. Another key aspect of his responsibility was emotional control. He knew that anger destroys judgment, frustration clouds clarity, and impatience creates unfairness. So he trained himself to respond, not react. That inner discipline allowed him to hold his ground even when he was provoked, challenged, or insulted publicly, and his people noticed. They began to trust him not because of his authority, but because of his reliability. When he said he would be somewhere, he was there. When he promised to solve an issue, he followed through. When he warned against corruption, he modeled purity. This reliability became the backbone of his leadership. It made people feel safe. It made justice feel real. In a world where responsibility is often avoided, Dhul-Kifl embraced it so fully that Allah himself honored him in Revelation. That is the mark of someone who understands the weight of duty and carries it with grace. Lessons for the young dreamers. Every generation searches for role models, people who show what real strength looks like, what real discipline feels like, and what real purpose means. For today's youth, drowning in a world of distractions, pressure, and emotional burnout, the life of Dhul-Kifl shines like a blueprint for inner success. His story may be ancient, but his lessons are shockingly modern. The first lesson he offers is discipline over emotion. Most young people struggle with impulsive reactions, anger, frustration, impatience. Dhul-Kifl mastered something rare: emotional control. He showed that true strength isn't yelling louder or fighting harder. It's staying calm when everything around you is trying to shake you. In leadership, in relationships, in personal goals, calmness is power. The second lesson is consistency beats talent. Dhul-Kifl wasn't remembered for miracles. He wasn't famous for grand battles or dramatic events. He was honored because he was consistent every day, in every responsibility. In a world where people chase shortcuts, his life teaches that the slow, steady path is the one that leads to greatness. You don't need to be extraordinary, you need to be reliable. The third lesson he offers is responsibility transforms you. Today's youth often fear responsibility, thinking it limits freedom. But Dhul-Kifl showed the opposite. Responsibility gives you direction, maturity, and identity. When he made his pledge, he didn't shrink, he grew. Responsibility didn't trap him, it elevated him. Taking ownership of your life, your actions, your habits, your goals is the first step to becoming someone the world can trust. The fourth lesson is patience is not passive, it's power. Dhul-Kifl didn't wait quietly. He endured actively. He engaged problems with wisdom. He faced provocations with control. He handled injustice with clarity. Real patience is not sitting back, it's holding your values steady while you move forward. And the final lesson is your greatness doesn't need applause. Dhul-Kifl had no fame, no long biography, no dramatic spotlight. Yet Allah honored him. Why? Because sincerity matters more than attention. For young people today, this is a wake-up call. You don't need millions of followers to matter. You just need integrity. His entire story tells youth one message: your character is your legacy. The legacy that outlived time. Centuries have passed. Empires have risen and fallen. Kings with towering monuments have been forgotten. And heroes once celebrated have faded into the dust of history. Yet the name Dhul-Kifl remains preserved not through massive kingdoms or dramatic miracles, but through character, honesty, and an unshakable promise kept with God. That is his legacy. Unlike many historical figures whose impact depended on armies or wealth, Dhul-Kifl proved that a man's influence can be eternal even if his story is brief. What made him unforgettable wasn't the length of his biography, it was the purity of his soul. Allah honored him in the Qur'an not because of worldly achievements, but because he possessed the qualities that define true greatness: patience, justice, responsibility, and unwavering discipline. His legacy teaches the world that leadership is not about power, it's about trust. He showed that a leader's real strength is measured by how they treat people, how they handle pressure, and how consistently they uphold truth. His life is a masterclass in ethical leadership, something humanity continues to struggle with today. Another part of his legacy is the reminder that promises are sacred. In a time where commitments are easily broken, Dhul-Kifl stands as a symbol of a man whose word was ironclad. When he pledged patience, he lived patience. When he pledged fairness, he delivered fairness. When he pledged steadiness, he became unshakable. And because of that, his community flourished under him, and future generations admired him. But perhaps the most powerful part of his legacy is this: you don't need fame to matter, you just need sincerity. Dhul-Kifl wasn't famous during his lifetime. He wasn't surrounded by large crowds celebrating him. He didn't chase recognition. His greatness was hidden, quiet, almost invisible. Yet Allah saw him, Allah honored him, and Allah placed his name among the righteous forever. For every person who feels unseen, for every person who works quietly, sincerely, without applause, for every young soul trying to build discipline and purpose, his story sends a message that echoes across the centuries. Allah sees you. Allah values your effort. Nothing righteous is ever wasted. That is the legacy of Dhul-Kifl, a reminder that greatness is built not in spotlight, but in sincerity,